Bantubam, normalize stealing pictures and videos from accounts and pages of media organizations, photographers, videographers who go to Africa and exploit our people and culture. Normalize taking their pictures and adding yourself as credit. Normalize writing articles online, talking about the mere perspective you have of who they are. Write articles about your situation, about what you've went through, about things you've learned from others based on these creatures. Normalize yourself of taking their things, reconstructing them, and taking credit for it. So that our children, while they're at school and need reference or bibliography, that they can use your source as a reference for their projects. Normalize taking credit, because if it wasn't for you, they would have nothing to speak about. Lastly, update us of their realities on your own terms.
And me, I have a few things that I think we should normalize as well. Like normalize touching their hair in public without their permission. Normalize asking them, oh, is that your real hair? Are you sure? Normalize telling them, oh, you are too pretty for a white girl. What are you mixed with? Normalize taking pictures of their children without their consent whenever you visit Europe or anywhere else you find them. Normalize touching them in public without their consent and petting them like zoo animals. Normalize asking the ones not in Europe, where are you from? I mean, where are you originally from? Normalize explaining their cultures to them. Normalize asking them about white-on-white crime, which, by the way, have been going on for centuries now. Normalize mispronouncing their names and not putting in any effort to learn the right pronunciations. Normalize digging up their dead and putting them in museums. Now, these are all I have at the moment, but do let me know down below in the comment section. Do let us know down below in the comment section what else you think we should normalize. And now that we're done with that subject, I came by this very interesting video that I wanted to share with you guys. I cannot wait to hear your opinions on this. So let's let the clip roll.
I feel like when you understand that slave owners were literally consuming our ancestors, it really contextualizes the icky feelings you get about how certain pieces of black media get consumed by larger, wider audiences. I have this theory about what the real American dream is, and I'm going to break it down in this video. But when you just spell it out, it kind of sounds like a spell, like it sounds like some creepy ritualistic shit. And I'm not trying to say there was some mysterious wizard cult leader behind the scenes like, oh, we need X, Y, and Z amount of black blood. But at the same time, the only difference between a cult and a religion is how long you manage to stick around, especially when it centers the person. History, in a sense, is gyroscopic. There are often cycles within cycles within cycles, sometimes spinning together, sometimes spinning in opposite directions. And one of those cycles that I think doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that the motherfuckers who started the whole slave trade, folks in the Iberian Peninsula, had just got done with 800 years of Moorish rule. Some people still debate whether or not Moors would be considered black in a modern context, but you need only look at period paintings to know that there were many black Moors in leadership positions. And there were also many non-black Moors. It was mixed race, and moreover, they led a mixed race society. So Jews, Moors, all of these people, Christians, were all living in what is modern day Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, in relative harmony. Until the Spanish took back over, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand took back over, and then instantly were on that bullshit. So Spanish Inquisition, they torture / expel most of the Jews from Spain. The same year, they sail to the New World, discover there's a whole half of the planet they can do their bullshit on, and are part and parcel in beginning the slave trade in earnest, along with the Portuguese. So in my eyes, in very broad strokes, in 1492, we see the pendulum of history swing, not only from a historical perspective, but from a psychological perspective. All the bullshit that happened that year, that started that year, to me, came from a place of insecurity. And I think that insecurity, coupled with a continent that had been engulfed in warfare for the entirety of the Middle Ages, set the tone for everything that would follow. And is directly related to the reasons that we saw like a slave rebellion like Nat Turner's rebellion result in Nat Turner being beheaded, flayed, dissected, and then having his skin turned into purses and his bones turned into trophies. Like, what is that? Like, really, what is that? It's creatively sick. I want to say more, but before I lose you, let's weave in the American dream. Culturally, the US has the same issue that its economic system has. It wants unlimited life on a limited resource. We have an expansionist culture in this country. We're supposed to be the pioneers, forging new paths, breaking new ground. For most of the US's history, that expansion was westward. But then we ran out of land to steal. So then it became a colonial project. We got to expand beyond the borders of the continental US. But the world kind of got divided up as much as it could be, and we had what we had. So then it was space. We got to go to space. That's our unifying thing, the final frontier. Why all of these frontiers? Because there is no cultural bedrock for this country to fucking stand on. And nothing unifies like a common enemy or a common goal. So the US is constantly looking for new enemies and new goals to unify what is otherwise a random assortment of people. And the most central unifier to this country has been the African American population of America. Stay with me. Whiteness is not real. It's made up. Blackness is not real, also made up. And because they are both constructs, the way that they function is largely immaterial and then proliferates in the material world. It's psychological, and the line between psychological and spiritual is very hazy. Put a pin in that. Europe had been at war for like a millennia. No one could fucking get along. Germany itself was probably like, 13 different states. England's at war with France. France is at war with England. The Gaelics are at war with, you know what I mean? It's all of these warring it's tribalism that's what it is, but it doesn't get called that because it's white people. So they needed a unifying force, and nothing unifies like a common enemy. The unifier is this concept of whiteness juxtaposed against blackness. Blackness is what America pushed itself off of to make it what it is. So you might come to the United States as a German man, but you get baptized into the cult of whiteness, wash yourself of your Germanness, and just become white. And the promise is, if you do that no matter what, no matter how broke you were when you came over here, you will always be better off than the African American population of this country. It's a psychological wage. It's a badge. It's a gold sticker. You see what I'm saying? That's the American dream. The Irish came over here, they weren't white, but they became white through blackness. Italians became white through blackness, which is why so much of the most virulent racism that you saw, especially in the North, was coming from Irish and Italian communities, because they had proximity to blackness and they had to prove themselves. It's like a hazing. They have to push themselves into whiteness off of blackness. But again, pendulums. There's this weird inverse relationship because blackness is portrayed as this bestial thing. So black masculinity and femininity both being associated with the peak of masculinity, but within that there's two different types of sexual vitality that are both lauded as being almost superhuman, right? And we live in a white supremacist male patriarchal society. So the whole center is supposed to be masculinity. So at the same time, the thing that they're pushing against is also the pinnacle of what they're claiming to be. And there's this weird tension. It's almost like and psychologically, there's so much to unpack there in terms of like how sexuality and are tied up in the American dream and anti-blackness. But let's skip over that for now. So you get baptized, right? You enter the cult of whiteness and you shed yourself of all your identity, all the thousands of years of culture that made you who you were. And you're just a blank slate. And you see the thing you pushed off against and see that there is still a culture there. And all of a sudden, there's this deep craving. Like the thing that you were pushing against that you claimed to hate in order to get what you always thought you wanted also has all the stuff that you're now missing. And that's why we see over and over again that African American culture specifically, but also black culture generally, gets pushed away and considered gross, ghetto, savage, whatever by white people, until after a while they're like, well, actually, I really want to be a part of this thing. And then they try to take it over. Jazz, rock and roll, techno, hip hop, everything. Whiteness as a concept creates a hungry ghost within you. It's a vacuum. It's a black hole, very ironically. And so, that's what they're saying when they say that, like, whiteness hurts everybody. No one benefits. And moreover, whiteness is a state of mind. It's not a physical thing. Because again, the Irish weren't white, the Italians weren't white, and now even in a modern context, you might see, for instance, in some instances, a West African might come to the US and understand the subtext of don't associate yourself with African Americans. Because that's the American dream. That's the subtext. In an attempt to join whiteness, East Asians attempt to join whiteness. African Americans attempt to join whiteness. Black men attempt to join whiteness. Everyone's trying to join. But the thing is, this cult takes everything from you. And it's only once you join that you realize what you've lost. Or rather, your children realize what you've lost. Whiteness is a cult. Everyone can join. Black people are delicious. I'll explain. Last thing I'll say, it's interesting from a physics perspective that whiteness requires all other colors to exist, but blackness requires no colors. That is to say, if we want to move towards a post-racial world, we all have to move towards blackness mentally as opposed to whiteness.